You're listening to Hardcore Harry, and I am Death to the New World Order, streaming to you live at freethinkradio.com, unitedtruthseekers.com, and eternally at d2nwo.com.
The battle for our planet has now begun. The battle cry for those who wish to rule over us is their watchword, globalization. Globalization is fueled by the Jewish oligarchs of finance capital who dictate to corporations a borderless labor force, wherever its sweat is cheapest and its intellect offers itself at 50% off. Textile weavers, engineers, computer programmers are pouring out of the crevices of China and in India. That's why Jewish finance, investment banks like N.M. Rothschild & Sons, Wolfson Group, Oppenheimer Funds, Goldman Sachs, and Sanford Val Citigroup are building their ivory towers in Shanghai, Mumbai, and in Bangalore. But if any shade of yellow or brown should offer its sweat and its intellect at wholesale prices, that's where their ivory towers will go. You see, people, presidents, prime ministers, whether their names are Singh, Wan, or Ying, are just pawns in the game of the Jewish oligarchs of globalization. Governance, not governors, is what makes for global rule. Will there be a one-world government to which all nations will submit and from which the Antichrist, whom the Orthodox Church teaches will be a Jew, will arise? That one-world government seems a long way off. But a one-world governance, led by names like Rothschild, Wolfson, Oppenheimer, Zellick, Lipsky, Dominic Kahn, Bernanke, Greenspan, Blankfein, Cohen, Viner, Vail, Friedman, Goldman Sachs, is at the very doors. As president of the Brother Nathaniel Foundation, we are warning Americans that their jobs, their checking and savings accounts are being bled dry by the Jewish oligarchs of globalization. What's in a name? Everything. For those who crucified Christ, now with finance capital in their hands, moving every piece of the puzzle throughout the globe, will soon crucify us all.
Okay. So, the point that he's making is that the New World Order, the one world government, is not a government of governments. It's not that the governments of all these nations are merging together to form a one world government, although that is happening to a smaller extent through venues like the United Nations, the European Union, and so on. The point that he's making is that it is the non-governmental organizations, the banking elite, the bloodline families that are merging together to create a global governance. The oligarchies. This doesn't run counter to anything I've said in the past. In fact, it caps it off quite well. Because you can always run into somebody who says, that's ridiculous. The United States still abides by the Constitution. It's still a sovereign nation. This and the other. What does that matter? If the United States government does whatever the non-governmental organizations do, which are part of global governance. They may maintain the illusion of separate sovereign nations while they rule them all, like parasites infesting the separate sovereign governments. It's perfectly possible, and I could argue that it's already happening. You know, in the United States government, and I was in the military, I would run into people, and they were NGO 12, NGO 7. And it's a rank. It's just like a military rank. You can look it up right now. You can open a new tab, go to Google, and put NGO ranking or something like that, and you'll find them. Of course, it was a long time ago, so I don't remember what the equivalencies were, but it's like NGO 12 was equivalent to a lieutenant in the Navy. And they worked right alongside them in the military. But I guarantee you it was the NGO who was getting the phone calls and dictating what the military was going to do. That's how it works. You have non-governmental entities, non-governmental officers, if you will, working right alongside the military, right alongside the politicians. The difference is people in the military come and go. You're transferred base to base quite frequently. Politicians come and go. They're elected. They're voted out of office. But the non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, they're forever. They're always there. The quote-unquote aides of the senators and the congressmen, they're always there. You know, when a senator takes office, they don't fire all the aides that were there before because they need them. Those aides are the ones that really know what's going on. Why do you think there's such a continuity between presidents and their policies? I mean, we could get somebody elected to office. Let's say, hypothetically, Ron Paul wins in 2012. He could leave Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State. Now, I know she's already said she won't remain Secretary of State. But my point stands that it's possible. There's no term limit on a Secretary of State. There's no term limit on the aides to the senators and the congressmen. There's no term limit on any non-governmental organization or non-governmental entity, non-governmental officer. Anyway, I'm going to try and stick to this article here a little bit. The American financial industry gained political power by amassing a kind of cultural capital, a belief system. Over the past decade, the attitude took hold that what was good for Wall Street was good for the country. And interestingly, I mean, just look at any news channel. They got the Dow Jones Industrial Average in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. MSNBC, Fox News, all of them. Just like people got glued to their televisions, glued to the Fox News channel or CNN or whatever it is you watch right after 9/11, so they could soak in all that trauma-based mind control during and after the financial collapse of 2008. They started putting that Dow Jones Industrial Average box on the screen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some stations leave it on there during commercials. And there's people who just stare at that. Like they got to know what the Dow Jones Industrial Average is going to do in the next 5 seconds or the world is going to end. You remember the flash crash? The banking and securities industry has become one of the top contributors to political campaigns, but at the peak of its influence, it did not have to buy favors this way, I guess it's supposed to say. For example, the tobacco companies or military contractors might have to. Instead, it benefited from the fact that Washington insiders were already believed that large financial institutions and free-flowing capital markets were crucial to America's position in the world. It is, of course, perfectly obvious that oligarchs want monopolies, not competitive markets. So all of the stuff pushed on the mainstream media about how we have a competitive marketplace is an illusion. You have to get that through your head. It's as much of an illusion that the government controls your nation. Think back to the BP oil spill. And it was shocking for some people to see this. But do you remember where people were going to the beach and they wanted to film, they wanted to take pictures of the oil? And the Coast Guard would kick them off the beach. You can't be here. You can't be on the beach. They'd be going by in their little Coast Guard boat telling people to get away. And the people would say, why? We have a right to be on the beach. And the Coast Guard, part of your government, said, no, BP doesn't want you here. The Coast Guard was acting as enforcers for British Petroleum, which is a non-governmental entity, a private corporation. a private corporation controlling your government. BP is part of the oligarchy. You understand? Can you get it through your head? Your government was acting as security force for the oligarchy. You can YouTube it right now. Open a new window. Open a new tab and put in Coast Guard. I don't know what you'd put in for that. Coast Guard enforces ban for BP. Whatever, moving on. In a real free market system, competition beats the price of goods down to the lowest possible level. How's that working on your cell phone bill? There's a lot of cell phone companies out there. How come the bills only get higher? It's not working at all, is it? Why hasn't there been a, what do they call that? Basically, if companies get together and say, hey, let's all agree to raise the price, that's illegal. Why hasn't there been an investigation to make sure that that's not happening? AT&T trying to buy T-Mobile is your free market in action. It's just like Adam Smith said. The member of parliament who supports every proposal for strengthening this monopoly is sure to acquire not only the reputation of understanding trade, but great popularity and influence with an order of men whose numbers and wealth render them of great importance. In other words, if you do as we say as a senator or a congressman or a president, you will find favor with the New World Order, with the global oligarchy, and you will go far. Isn't Hillary Clinton now Secretary of State after her husband did everything he was told? Yeah. Bill Clinton was a good boy. He did what the oligarchy wanted. He has a position in global government. Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State for the United States. Look at Rahm Emanuel. He's going to be governor of Chicago, or is he already governor of Chicago? The global oligarchy has grown to the point where it's no longer going to be controlling a country, even a state. I mean, they're not just going to control 50 states anymore. They're going to control every individual city because they're that big now. The parasites have multiplied because we haven't fought back against them, because we haven't exposed them, because we haven't educated the ignorant masses to what's going on. So New York says, yeah, we should have Hillary Clinton as governor or mayor or whatever it is she ran for and run, pulling that cognitive dissonance psychological warfare crap. And Chicago says, yeah, we want Rahm Emanuel. How stupid do you have to be? That man flat out said, never miss the opportunity to take advantage of a catastrophe, which means create catastrophes so that you can take advantage of them. And what he actually said was never miss the opportunity to do during a disaster what you could not do before. This is problem, reaction, solution. This is the Hegelian dialectic. Hillary Clinton flat out said cognitive dissonance in one of her statements. So not only is she using it, she knows she's using it. She knows what it is. She knows what it means. It's a tactic she employs. Deliberately outraging people over and over and over until you wear them down psychologically and they no longer care. Hillary Clinton is the queen of cognitive dissonance. Anyway, getting people to believe the fairy tale doesn't come cheap. You have to be willing to spend enormous quantities of money by the standards of average people to buy that kind of influence, but that doesn't matter to them because they're not spending their own money, they're spending yours. You have to have multiple forums and many influential and authoritative people repeating your myths. That hardly matters because now they've got actors. They've got fake activists, fake protesters. They're drawing lines. They're writing things on the road. They're staging events. And this is why. You need economists unanchored by reality and sitting in endowed chairs at famous universities. They've got that.